I should have asked you this earlier, because we're talking about billions of dollars. But the world has changed. Once upon a time, cash was king. That's not the case anymore. You can't even open a bank account if you have a certain amount of cash without explaining where you got that money from. How are these guys washing their money these days? Because it's not like addicts are paying for their drugs with a credit card.
Basically, they're laundering the money through businesses. Like I stated, the cartels they hire people to open up like this marijuana dispensaries for them, and they launder a lot of money. A lot of the money that they use to set up the building and buy the product and everything else is drug monies, and they're cleaning a lot of this money, laundering them through businesses. They also open up shell corporations, Shawn, that they use to bring money in and out of the country, and they are very much facilitated by banks. Banks are involved in this. I mean, we found out that the BCCI Bank, Bank of Credit International out of New York, was laundering billions in drug profits for these cartels. We ended up having to close that bank finally down. But it's not just the drug dealers. It's the banking community is also corrupt. There's a lot of corruption. Money buys a lot of things, Shawn, and people may have made a lot of people have made money their god. I was not one of them. I didn't. I don't love money more than I love my God. And I did not join the DEA because I was going to be a rich man or because I was going to make a lot of money. Like you stated before, I was almost working for minimum wage, risking my life. So therefore, a lot of emphasis and importance is put on how rich a person is, how much wealth they have. But ask yourself, how did they make it? It's hard, especially for people that are struggling. They don't have an education to become millionaires. There's only one way that a person that doesn't have an education that came from the ghetto or the barrio is going to become a millionaire, and that's by criminal activity, mainly drug trafficking. And a lot of our kids, by by the way, become drug dealers because they want to have what everybody else has. They want to have the car. They want to have the nice house. They want to be able to take their girlfriends out. And they don't have a job that will accommodate that. Right now, $20 an hour wage wouldn't even afford you to buy a brand new car. Less a house, Shawn. That's how bad it is right now. Most young people right now, even college graduates, cannot afford to buy a house. Most of them get out of college, they get a job, and they'll go back to living with their parents, and that's what we're seeing now.
That's very true. The cost of living has gone through the roof. And unfortunately, the wages have not increased to match what the cost of living is. So you're absolutely right. Which brings me to my next question for you. We often think about smuggling coming in from the Mexico side into the US. But are you familiar with the Mexicans paying US citizens to smuggle in firearms for them? They're bringing in millions of guns into Mexico every year. They're buying them here legally and then taking them over the border and helping to arm the cartels. Is this something you're familiar with?
I'm very familiar with it, and unfortunately, now the cartels are so powerful that they're not using citizens to buy like firearms to take smuggle them across the border, even though some of it is being done, yes. The situation is who is arming the cartels with surface to air missiles, lost rockets, drones? Who is arming them with those military weapons? Shawn, you can't buy a surface to air missile at your neighborhood, basically gun store. Corrupt enemy countries are arming these cartels. You can't. You can't buy an M60 machine gun with a tripod. You can't buy army personnel carriers out in the open market. But yet the cartels, if you look at them, they look like soldiers. They've got the protection. They got the uniforms, even the boots. They drive in army personnel carriers in Mexico. They have the weapons to shoot down helicopters. They have shot down in the last year two Black Hawk helicopters. Basically, they were transporting Marines in those two Black Hawks, and they were blown out of the sky. So they have the cartels in Mexico have the capability of shooting down jets. These are the weapons they have. What do you think? Even if the president of Mexico says, "I want to do war against the cartels," right now, the cartels might win. They might be better armed than the darn Mexican army. That's how bad it's gotten, Shawn. And nobody addresses who is arming these cartels.
Well, you know, I absolutely read an article where many of the guns are coming in from the United States. But in speaking to you in the past, and I want to make sure I got my facts correct, aren't some of those military grade weapons coming in from China as well?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the Chinese have armed some of these cartels. Also, when I was working for the DEA, our CIA was arming one of the cartels. They were arming the Sinaloa Cartel, the Guadalajara Cartel. I know because I had witnesses that were there when a CIA operative by the name of Ismael Felix Rodriguez would show up at the airport with his weapons. And some of my witnesses that were working for the Guadalajara Cartel then would actually pick up the weapons at the airport and transport them to Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, the head of the Guadalajara Cartel. And I'm talking military weapons. I mean, we're talking M16s and M60 machine guns and stuff like that, grenade launchers. And that was back in the 80s and 90s. Now it's more sophisticated. And these guys are very well armed.
Yeah, they're clearly well armed. And I'm sure you saw this as well. I'm not sure if it was this year or sometime last year. Uh, El Chapo, one of his sons, was arrested, and the cartels literally waged war on a police precinct. So much to the fact that the police allowed this man to walk out the front door because they were surrounded and officers were being killed. So clearly, the cartels are outgunning the Mexican authorities.
This situation happened in 2019. It happened in the city of Culiacan, Sinaloa. The police had arrested Ovidio Guzman Noera, or Guzman, Chapo Guzman's son. He's known as El Raton, who was a major fentanyl, basically cloak manufacturer. The Sinaloa Cartel sent over 400 heavily armed men, surrounded the location where Ovidio was being held, and basically told them, and they killed a lot of policemen, but they told everybody, we're going to go in and kill all the officers in the precinct there. We're going to kill everybody. So basically, the police, who was asking for more government protection, more troops to come in and save them, were ordered by the president of Mexico, Lopez Obrador, to release him. And so therefore, Ovidio Guzman, Chapo's son, was released by the police, by the authorities, but on orders of Mexico's president. When asked later by reporters why he ordered the release of the criminal, he stated that he just wanted to avoid more bloodshed, more death, so therefore it was better to release him than get involved in a major shootout with the cartels.
Does something like that empower the cartels? Does it make them feel more emboldened, more, look, you guys know what we'll do if you touch one of ours? That was just a message. And hopefully you got it loud and clear.
That is totally correct. It emboldens them. It makes them feel that they are above the law, which they are above the law in Mexico. Yes, the only reason some of the guys, cartel members, are confronted by the Mexican army is because they're doing the bidding of a cartel and they're killing cartel enemies. But that's the only time. And the cartels are at war with each other, very much at war. Villages have been abandoned because of the violence. There's a little town south of us here. It's called Sasabe, Sonora, Mexico. That there used to be 60,000 inhabitants in the little village. Guess what, Shawn? Everybody left because the cartel took over the village. Everybody just left. There's no longer really a Sasabe, a city of Sasabe anymore south of our border. That's what's going on every day. Our news media doesn't cover it, but because I speak Spanish, I listen to Mexican media and read Mexican newspapers, and I'm abreast of what's going on. Another reason I'm abreast of what's going on in Mexico right now is because a lot of my old informant sources of information, they still call me and give me information and tell me what's going on. So I do know what's going on currently in Mexico.